Welcome to Darin Batchelder's Real Estate Investing Show. Each week, you will learn how to grow your wealth through real estate investing. Be introduced to the players that are getting it done and learn how you can get involved. And now, here's your host, Darin Batchelder.
Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. We've got Ellis Hammond here with us. Ellis, appreciate you coming on the show.
Finally, man. We made it happen. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. It has been a while, for sure. Well, just a little bit on how we know each other, and then we'll get into it. This is the first time that Ellis and I are actually talking. We've corresponded, through email and through instant messaging, and it's taken a while for us to get here, but here we are. And I know of Ellis from social media. He's all over the place. He talks at conferences. He's got a lot going on, so I'm very interested in this conversation. With that said, Ellis, can you just share with the listeners how many properties and how many units you're currently invested in?
You told me you were going to ask me that, so I went to go pull that up. Honestly, man, because we've been growing so fast.
It was not a surprise question, right?
I had to, I actually was like, well, I actually don't know. We own...
Just ballpark it, man.
No, I'm looking at it right here. We actually just sent out a new packet, 817 units, 124 million, 550,000. How's that for an answer?
Awesome. 817 units. So... we have people on the show that have, thousands of units, and people on the show that are just getting going. But, you come from a unique background. You're the first person I've had on the show that comes from this background. So can you share with the listeners your background and why you made the shift?
Yeah, it is crazy, man, to look at that and say 817 units, $124 million. That's been about 3 years. Of really, really hard work and really consistent, massive action. Because before that, I was a full-time college pastor.
Did you guys hear that? A college pastor.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I mean, my family, owned a boat shop. That was about my entrepreneurial experience. I don't have any of my family in our deals. Very few of my friends or former network in our stuff. My whole network was 18, 19-year-olds, man. That's what it was, and I really had to build this from scratch. And so, but we wanted to accomplish something massive. Just to give. So anyways, I say that, first of all, if anyone's listening and you're like, well, I'm trying to get there too, I'm on the active side. It's possible. You can absolutely do it, and it just takes consistent action, and it takes making connections and building your network and, recreating that identity. We were able to do it. It's not come easy, though. I can say that. I would say this, I think there's been several times where I've been almost completely out of money. And I think
is that right?
Most people, well, the nice thing is I've never been with money. So I'm okay with it in the sense that, I was a missionary. I never had money, man. So that's not a big deal. But I think the difference is, I was just telling my wife this last night, because we've recently had some great momentum and there's some big rewards coming our way because of that. And we were just kind of celebrating that at dinner last night. And I just told her, I was like, one day I'm going to be able to kind of tell these stories of we've almost been broke, really broke, bad broke, not know how to pay our bills, broke 3 times. And I would say most people just don't stick with it long enough. They would have given up already. And I think that's the difference. Are you okay in terms of being an entrepreneur to stick with it, man? Because it's very, very difficult. And maybe it's because I was a bad entrepreneur early on, and I didn't quite know all that I was doing. So maybe not everyone's journey has to be that, but for me it did, man, because I didn't know much. I didn't know how to really build and create a business and run a team and how to build a sales cycle and all of these different things, and so that was a huge part of it. I
think that's you said a lot of great things there. One, a lot of people don't stick with it long enough. I went to a conference in California called Secret Knock, and the guy who puts that on is Greg Reed. He's also an author, and one of his books is 3 Feet from Gold. So he knows a lot of people that have, billionaires, and multi-millionaires. And a lot of people say the same thing you just said. They just stuck it out long enough. They just kept plowing forward. And, that's something I also say to people that reach out to me about getting into the business. I'm like, look, whether I joined a mentorship group, I don't know if you've been in a group or not, but there's people that will just stroke a check and then they expect it just to happen for them. And I tell them, save your money, because that gets you in the door, but you still have to fight, kick and scratch, to get the first deal done, to make your way. So talk about, building from scratch. I mean, I think that's huge. Like, one, you had to have mindset that you believed in yourself.
Yeah. I love this conversation, man, because like a lot of this has very little to do with real estate. And I think that's the point that I hope everyone can get out of this. Like, all my partners know way more about real estate than I do. I'm just the guy who's like, I'm relentless in what we're trying to accomplish. I am pushing everyone as hard as I can to get there. And so it has our success, no doubt, and my partners would agree on this, has a lot to do with me as at the head. Without them, we would not be there either, right? So we need each other. But my point is, like, I'm not the big experienced real estate guy. I'm just the relentless leader who's like, I believe that we can do this. How hard do we got to push? I won't let us give up. So I just want to encourage you to listen, like, you don't need decades of real estate experience or entrepreneurship experience to figure this out. You just can't give up, and that's, if there's a message in this today, that's it. And I definitely think that comes from faith, man. My faith in God, my faith that, my identity is not tied up in what we accomplish. Like, I'm very, very secure in who I am because of my faith in Christ. And because of that, I just want to do something massive. Like, I feel, why would we not? If God is our creator and we're made in his image, like, why would we not try and go do something big? What else do we have to lose, right? Like, I know where my eternity rests. Like, I don't really want to just pedal down here. I want to be able to have something to present with the gifts and the talents that I've been given. And a lot of that came when I was a college pastor. How I even got here, I went into ministry for many reasons that were good. I wanted to help people. I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to see lives changed. But I also went into ministry, man, because my parents divorced at 10. When I was 10, my dad and mom always fought about money. It was always the issue. I was always the mediator. My dad retired when he was 40. Had a couple bad business transactions after that, and just complained and worried about money until he died when he was 55.
Wow, young.
And so, to be honest with you, man, I just didn't want anything to do with money. Like, I just hated it. I just thought I was a bad steward of it. I thought it just destroyed relationships. So I just ran, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, what can I do that, like, I don't have to worry about money? And I'm just so naive, right?
Yeah.
And about 4 years into our ministry, one of the young men on my team who had graduated from the college, who's now come on our staff team, we were kind of like missionary style, right, where we were raising all of our funds to support our nonprofit. And so I remember about 4 years in, man, we've been building this team, had a ton of momentum, but I could feel like there were some constraints and some financial hiccups coming our way. And he just came to me and he said, Ellis, I don't have enough money this month to buy groceries. And man, that hit me like a ton of bricks, because there was literally nothing I could do to help him, because I was barely raising enough support, because I wasn't, I was uncomfortable asking people for money because I didn't like it. So I was asking people for $1,200 a year, which is funny to think that we've raised $6 million in the last 6 months, and now I was scared to ask for $1,200 back then, because it was a terrible money mindset. And that's when I realized that I cannot spend the rest of my life ignoring money, because here was a guy who wanted to live his life for a great purpose. And the only thing that was really stopping him was capital and access to capital. And so that was just a turning point for me. And I think, if anything, that's one of the reasons why I just haven't given up, because I'm like, we have a lot to do. And if I give up, what about all these guys who are trying to help? What about all these people dependent on us? So, you can't give up. And I think that, Grant Cardone, who's a mentor of mine, he says most people just aren't motivated enough. You give up on your goals because they're not big enough. That's what he says. And I so resonate with that. Like, if you just have a small goal and it only really benefits you in your personal situation, is that really going to keep you motivated when things get really, really tough? Like, when your wife is saying to you, hey, Ellis, why don't you just go get a job? That, the one that you trust, the one that you love, the one that you hope is going to be there through thick and thin. And she's like, maybe it's time to start thinking about just going and getting a job. It's like,
tail between the legs,
check, it's like
right.
The one I need, that's not what I need to hear, And so are you going to be motivated to say, no, thank you for your suggestion. I know you care about our family, but that would be like death. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, is your motivation big enough to carry you through moments like that? And I think most people answer is no, because they haven't dreamed big enough.
Yeah, that's huge. The other thing I'd like to get your take on, coming from your background is, so I've sat in church, where I think I hear the pastor talking about, some kind of community event. People are going to go and clean up garbage or, rake lawns in the neighborhood. And for one reason or another, I just never felt like that was something I really felt strongly about doing in terms of service. But the syndication world, I'm like, I don't know if everybody looks at it this way, but I look at it as serving. Like, you bring in all these investors and you help grow the wealth of all these families. My first syndication deal had 44 limited partners. Well, we more than doubled money. Like, well, that is growing the wealth of all those families. They have different needs. Some is to go to college. Some is, maybe buy a new car or go on vacation. But I look at that as service. The other side of it is, the residents. You're improving the property. And so you're serving those tenants by providing them a better place to live. So what's your take on that? Going from being a college pastor, and look, you were serving, and part of that service, you even said it, was, getting paid very little to do it. But you're serving in one way, and now you're doing it in the business sense. Do you look at it as service?
Yeah, 100%. One of the money, I wrote a book called The Mission of Multifamily. You can get it for free right now. Actually, if you just go, I don't promote. Give your audience to it. It's called.
No, hey, it's free. You're giving out a gift.
Yeah,
man. Tell people
you
where
can
they
grab
can get
a copy of it. Missionofmultifamily.com. www.missionofmultifamily.com. So I wrote this. Honestly, I wrote the whole book in a weekend, man, because I'd been saying it so much that it just flowed out of me. And one of the things I talk about in that book is my money mindset and what the things that I had to overcome in order to get to where I am today. And one of those things was that money flows to value. And, the church has been an awful example of really helping entrepreneurs understand this principle, where most of what you said is kind of fear-based in terms of money. Mostly because it's taught by pastors who've never had any money either, or only had negative experiences with money. And so there's never really any good teaching around like wealth creation and money. So one of the things, you're right, man, money flows to value, and those who can create value in the world are typically very successful. I mean, look at Elon Musk, look at the Jeff Bezoses, look at Apple, Steve Jobs, right? Like, regardless of what you think about them as an individual, the reason they're freaking rich is because the entire world uses their products. You know what I'm saying? Like they've created massive value for the world. So if we change the conversation from not how much money should you make, but how much value should you create, well, then anyone, regardless of their faith, regardless of their religious beliefs, would say, well, as much as we should, well, as much as we can create value, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. And so then if you connect, well, then money flows to value. Well, then those who create more value are also going to make more money. And so, from your question of a service standpoint, man, that's what we're in the business of doing, right? Is like, how do we add value to our investor base? Well, we provide them an alternative option to really build and create significant wealth. As a matter of fact, I think I can probably help you retire a decade or earlier than you ever would in a traditional wealth building approach, hands down. And then from our tenants, like I believe, and the reason I know this is true because I walk deals all the time, and it is shameful to see how much owners and operators overlook the small details that really impact people's lives. I rent. I live in San Diego. We sold our place because someone paid us ridiculous amounts of money, so we rent. And so it's important to me when I walk outside to take my dog for a walk that there's not trash laying all over the ground, right? That it's safe, that it's well lit, that there aren't homeless people on the side of the street, right, out in front of my place. And it's amazing how many people as an owner don't care about that, right? And don't realize you own someone's home. And I think we at Symphony take that very seriously. And so when we're walking deals, I'm looking for that. I'm paying attention to that. What do we need to fix? What can we change? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I realize I don't have to just answer to my investors at the end of the day, right? Yeah, I got to give them a great return, but ultimately I got to answer to God. And that's way more important than a 15 to 17% return. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And I think that's really significant.
And some of the, sometimes you just be walking the property and a tenant will, know that you're one of the owners and just walk up and say, thank you.
Yeah.
And you're like, thank you for what? And then they'll tell you, the little things that you did that have changed their lives, that for the better. So, it really does happen.
Yeah,
so,
I'm going to give a great example. We bought a couple of deals in Kansas City now, pretty distressed assets. One deal we owned, or the one before it owned it about 30 years. And we had a couple investors kind of worried, like, hey, in order for us to, there's no and ifs or buts about this. When we buy a deal, we got to raise rents, man. You know that. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Rents got to go up, for us to make money in this business. And I think a lot of investors can have issues with that. And buying a very distressed deal where rents probably need to go up significantly, it's like, well, what about the current existing tenant base? And so a lot of folks maybe didn't invest in that deal with us because they knew, hey, we're going to come in there, we're going to have to clean this property up. And those who just kind of want a handout are probably going to have to leave. And so what's interesting, though, we took that deal over. We had 8 people illegally living there that just completely picked up shop and left. So all of a sudden we had 8 units vacant. We had the property owner who was the property manager stealing from the owner. He was running a furniture store out of one of the units. So now all of a sudden we have 9. Wow. And then, like over the first 2 weeks or something, like 3 more people ended up moving out. So all of a sudden we were 100% occupied that everyone was worried about we were going to kick out to now we're 75% occupied. And so we got to work renovating those 15 units. And, as we started doing that and cleaning up the exterior, painting, putting in new carpets, right, new exterior lighting, making sure it's really safe. And all of a sudden we started getting calls from current residents who are saying, hey, can I get on the waiting list to move into those new units? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And I think that's the story that doesn't get told enough is like, man, people really want a nice place and a safe place to live and are willing typically to pay to be able to afford that. And by the way, our rents were still like under $900, so it's not like we came in and jack rents up we still made it very affordable. My point is that money flows to value. And so that is what we do in the business. If we create enough value for people that they see that I'm willing to pay for that because there's enough value tied to that, then that should be our goal. and the rest will kind of work itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now there's some benefits. Like when I took over, I remember I had a bunch of syndicators tell me, "Hey, Darin, man, once you close, you're going to have a bunch of people that are going to move out." I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And sure enough, it did. It's kind of similar, occupancy dropped, more than I thought it was going to. But the benefit was we were able to renovate all those units and get new paying tenants in quicker. So instead of it being phased in over, say, 6 months, that we had all these units available. We turned them, in 3-4 weeks and got new tenants in there that were paying. And then you had that revenue for a lot longer through the year. So it can feel scary, at first, but then it could end up turning out to be a good thing in the end.
Yeah, 100%.
So another thing, you mentioned fear. I talk a lot about this with, for listeners, and you have a faith, based background, one for what you were doing, in addition to just your personal values. But I think God has given all of us like unique, talents and capabilities, and we all have a gut feel. And there's just so many people out there, I think, that have that gut feel that they want to take a chance, whether it's real estate investing or starting their own business or somehow providing that value that you're talking about, right? Providing that value back to other people, but they're scared to take the step and they stay in what they think is the safe zone, their W-2 job. And look, some people love their W-2 job, and that's great. But then there's others that I know that just go on year after year and are unhappy. So, how did you make that shift? Because I think that's so important for people to be able to take a chance,
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably less important how I did it and what's replicatable for how others can do it. I think, step one is, pick the right vehicle. Our first deal was a duplex, and we would never be where we are today if we'd have stayed buying duplexes. And so picking the right.
Let me jump in. You may not be where you are either if you didn't buy that first duplex.
It's true. No,
right?
I wouldn't have learned. Well, what I'm saying is what I'm about to tell them today,
take an action step.
Yeah,
right?
100%. But maybe the action step can be just listen to this podcast so I can save you from the heartache that I went through. Because I think that's part of it, right, is you want to pick the right vehicle. How do I know it's the right vehicle? Well, you make sure you have good mentors and people you're listening to tell you what the right vehicle is. Because what I just did was the first thing that I could get into, and it was a duplex. And like I said, it got me to where I am today, but my point is it was never it wasn't the right vehicle. And if I had someone kind of shown me, because here's the thing, 9 months later, I bought my first 144 unit apartment building. So it wasn't that nothing changed, except I just had new knowledge, like my network was still the same. I just knew something better. I learned a different vehicle. And so is the vehicle that you're picking, is it scalable? Is it what am I saying here? Has it been proven in the sense of are other people, using this vehicle to get the type of results that you want to get to? And, that's a really good question if you're trying to start out is, am I picking the right vehicle, right? And are other people proven that this is something that works? Real estate, large commercial real estate is a very proven vehicle that works. I'm doing it, Darin, you're doing it. We know so many other people doing it. And so, picking the right vehicle is really, really key. And then, you said this already, like finding a good mentor or plugging into a great network. I think, we run a mastermind called Kingdom REI for faith-based investors and leaders. And, the thing I get the most is like, well, I'm not there yet. Why would I spend thousands of dollars to join a mastermind or community or coaching? And just to tell you my story, I found the vehicle, commercial real estate, but the problem was I knew I didn't have a network. I didn't have good mentors. How was I going to go do this? I looked at my wife and said, hey, I need to spend the money now in order to get to where we want to go. We had $10,000 in the bank. I just said, I need all of it. I need all of it, and I need to put it in my network, my education, and mentors. Because the network we have around us today will never get us to where we want to go in the future. And so we took that 10 grand, man, and I just spent it on events, conferences, mentorships, masterminds, whatever I could. And some stuff I blew it on bad stuff, but it taught me that I was still investing in myself, right? I think that's what most people are worried about. Like, oh, I don't want to spend this 5K or this 10K because what if it's the wrong thing? Who cares? Like, because the reality is, if you really want to get to $1 million a year in revenue and you're worried about 10K today, like the mindset is off, man. Like, who cares about 10K? You know, you're making $1 million a year in 3 years. And so that was my, that's what I did. And the next year I made $144,000 off of that 10K investment. And the following year after that, I bought $100 million in multifamily real estate. So, I knew it would work, but I had to go put other people around me. And so I think that's like step number 2 is invest now, unless you want to kind of figure it out yourself and take 10 years. But if you live life with urgency, which I hope most people do, and I'm sure if they listen to the podcast, they do, you don't have 10 years to waste, man. So if your goal is to make $1 million a year, let's say, why are you worried about spending 10K today, even if that's tight? Because you need to start acting like you're making $1 million a year today in order to get there in 3 years. And really the best way to do that is to put yourself around people who are already making $1 million a year. Because, for example, today I am making an offer. I want to make a counter offer. We have a counter offer in our inbox for a $48.7 million multifamily deal in Dallas, Texas. Darin, in full transparency, I do not have the $14 million of equity to be able to purchase this deal. But you know what I have, and that's why I've been on the phone all morning, phone calls after. I know who to call.
Right.
I know who to pick up the phone and give a call. And guess what? They pick up my phone. Why? Because I spent the money to get their attention. Like, that's the only reason why. I've spent 6 figures last year joining masterminds, education, to be able to be in this spot. I was just taking a walk earlier. I'm like, you know what? If we can get this deal, like, this is the culmination of all of this. Now, it will be the first step and there'll be multiple, but this is what I'm saying. Like, this is the culmination of now I know who to pick up the phone to and call to try and take down a $48 million asset. I'm going to blow people's mind, dude, when I close on this $50 million deal. Because, first off, if this deal was on market, every institutional buyer would be trying to buy this deal. And I'm going to walk in there, former college pastor, never bought in the city of Dallas, and take down an asset that everyone wants their hands on. And I'm going to get someone's attention. And that's the whole goal, And so it's a really exciting time. And I share that story to be like, but we had to get really uncomfortable early on. My only 10K. Well, what else do I got to lose? I only have $10,000 in the bank. What I'm doing right now currently isn't working. Like, let's spend all of it to be in a new financial situation. And
that's huge, man.
That's the strategy, man. Spend it all today. Because if you look at your bank account and you're not happy with it, spend it. Because that's what's keeping you from the next level.
When you say spend it, I would maybe change that word to be invest in yourself. You know, because you don't want to go out and buy clothes.
Clearly not. But my point is that like most people are trying to manage $100,000.
Right.
When that's your biggest barrier. That $100,000 sitting in the bank is your ceiling because you're so worried about what to do with $100,000. Dude, forget the $100,000. Get rid of it. Invest it. Go do something with it, and then start. Figure out. Okay, now I got zero. Now what? But you've put that 100 into things that are going to accelerate you faster. And I've been there, man. Even now, like now that we have some more money in the bank. Like I look at that like, oh, okay, cool. We got some money coming in. It really is. It's still a ceiling. It's like, oh, well, now that I got some money to manage, should I start managing this money? How do I invest this money? And I lose that edge of like, I'm nowhere near where I know we can be. Forget the couple $100,000 we have sitting on the sideline right now. You know, it's like we got new targets, new ceilings. So I hope I'm making sense, man, because I feel like I'm.
You totally are.
This
I
is
mean,
the stuff though that like only really comes out on a live interview. That I don't really like. You know, no one will really listen to this. Like my family's not going to listen to this. My wife barely listens to this. So hopefully this is speaking to somebody. Because if you're like me, and I know some people like this are listening, it's so possible, man. It just is all right here between the ears. And if you can fix this, and you really truly have faith, or someone just has faith in you. You can do it, man. It's possible.
That's a crazy story. So, you know, I'm older than you. I'm 51 and I got involved like 4 years ago. So I had the capital, and I think it's great for, you know, and we have listeners that are just, you know, passive investors that are looking to grow. And then we have syndicators that are looking to scale. But you know, it's important for people to understand that, look, Ellis had $10,000. You know, it wasn't like a lot of people think to get in this game, you have to have, you know, $1 million or $500,000, you know, to get into the game. And really, you said it on the head, is in between your ears, you know, your mindset that you believe that you can add value is huge. And you focused on the part of the business, you know, where you had skills.
Yeah.
Where you had skills, you didn't, and you weren't lacking. So you doubled down on your strengths rather than focusing on your weaknesses. And then you just partnered with people, you know, that had the other things that you needed.
That's exactly the strategy. And that's what we, you know, even inside of Kingdom REI, it's what we help folks do is like, forget trying to learn the whole business. This business is very, very simple, and it comes down to two things. It comes down to finding deals or raising capital. And that's it. Like, figure out which one you want to do. And you can be very, very successful and very, very wealthy if you can get good at one of those two things. And if you're going to pick deals, make sure you have someone lined up to buy that deal, right? If you're going to be if you're going to go raise capital, then make sure you have opportunities to bring that capital too. And so I knew which one I was going to focus on when I got started. And the nice thing is now that we're, you know, a couple of years into this, we can raise the money, we can manage the money, we can communicate the story. Now we can go find deals, and now we can operate those deals, right? And so that's, you know, that's why we have access to the deal I was telling you about earlier. But yeah, early on, you know, trying to figure out this whole business, it'll take you a lifetime to learn this business, man. You know, it really will.
Keep learning. Why do you think that this is the right vehicle?
Well, it's just proven. I mean, it's proven that like so many people have done it. Like, my point is, when I walked, so I didn't tell you the story, but I walked into, when I was a pastor, I thought, how do I do this? And I was just open. I was finally open. I'm like, okay, I'm looking for opportunity. And I heard a radio ad, and it said, if you want to learn how to build wealth through real estate, come to this seminar. And like, who, you know what I mean? I learned that
and you
day.
You floated there. Come on, baby. I'm going.
Yeah, literally, man. And like, that's where I realized, like, the radio ads are for desperate people. And there's a lot of desperate people out there. And that's why this stuff works. And, but what I did, man, I went, you know, I don't know if I ever really took them up on that offer, but I went, and it was the first time that I saw with my own eyes, regular people, didn't come from big money, non-institutional, building buku's amount of money, wealth through real estate. And I was just like, if these jokers can do it, you know, like, I can figure this out. And I think that's why I'm convinced, because I've seen other people do it. You know, it's not going anywhere. The more, you know, I questioned multifamily syndication for a long time when I got started, because it didn't seem very predictable, because it's hard to find deals, and we're in a very competitive market right now. But the more I've learned is like, we were in the wrong markets. They weren't very transactional. We didn't know enough people. We didn't really know what it meant to go find deals. Now I realize there's opportunities everywhere. There's capital everywhere. And if you're if you're doing, if you're in it and you're seeing enough opportunities, you have the right people showing you opportunities, and enough people know you, like, it's just constant, man. We're so busy. I mean, we're making an LOI a week right now on deals that we're like, we would love to buy that project. And so, like I said, don't give up. It looks hard. It looks difficult. I mean, really, like, even I thought I had the right vehicle, a year and a half in, I'm like, I should have went into like e-commerce or something or marketing, like, this is ridiculously, stupidly hard. I'm not making any money. And, I know entrepreneurship is the right way, but maybe I should not do real estate. And, stuck with it because I saw mentors do where I'm at, and they've not been it for very long. I'm like, okay, that guy's doing it. That guy's doing it. Okay, he's there, someone like yourself, like, follow these guys on Instagram. I'm like, okay, he's doing it. And I'll ask, like, I've asked my mentors, hey man, how much money did you make this year? Because if they, and I wanted to know that, because if it wasn't millions of dollars, I'm in the wrong place. And they would be like, yeah, I made this much. I'm like, okay, that's worth it,
Right,
and,
keep going.
And just staying with it, man. That's it. And that's, I mean, to answer your question, that's why I know it's the right vehicle, because I've done my due diligence. I've asked the right questions.
I mean, I think that a few things. One, you went out to, you heard that radio ad, and as enticing as it was, and as desperate as you were at that time, you took a step of action, and you maybe didn't invest in that, but that got the ball rolling. Just like when you talked about, you bought a duplex, and then 9 months later you bought 144 units. Like, I tell the listeners, at some point you got to take action. That action could be go to a free meetup group, or go to a multifamily conference, or, buy your first real estate deal. But there's a quote out there that says like 90% of millionaires are created through real estate, and one of the reasons why is because, well, a few reasons why, there's so much leverage on the deals. So a bank is providing anywhere from 70 to 80% financing, and the equity owners are getting all of the upside. That's huge. Secondly, there's massive tax benefits, that can shield any distributions and provide the ability to, roll gains forward tax-free. So massive ways to grow wealth that if you're not in the game, you just can't fully understand.
Yeah.
But once you surround yourself with other people, once you start asking other people, like, well, how'd you do it? Then you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, I'm going to stick it out.
Yeah. So if you're there, like, let me just be really clear. Like, this is very hard. Like, I would not quit your day job and try and figure this thing out. But what I would do is realize is business in its very simplicity comes down to finding deals or finding money. You can do both, and I would encourage you to start building both. If you don't know anyone with money, then start associating yourself with people with money. I had to change my identity. People saw me as the pastor, not the real estate guy. So how do you change your identity? The internet is a great place to change your identity. Associate yourself with people who are where you want to be. Start a podcast. That's what I did. It was LinkedIn first, and I just was like interacting with people on LinkedIn. I would ask people for quotes. Literally, this is the grunt work, man, I did early on. I would DM people on LinkedIn who are in the commercial real estate industry, and said, hey, I'm doing this challenge. I want to spotlight you on my LinkedIn. Can you provide me a quote for how, for early real estate investors? And they were happy to do it. Why? Because I was giving them free promotion. And I would create a quote card on Canva. I didn't have a designer back then. And I would put that on my LinkedIn. And like, slowly over time, it's like, Ellis, I see you everywhere talking about real estate. Are you in real estate? It's like, yeah, I am. Here's what I'm doing. Right. And I changed my identity, honestly. And now most people really don't know me as the college pastor. They know me as multifamily investor, who was a former college pastor, right? But if they know me as a college pastor, it's just only because they realize, well, look where he's come. It's not, oh, this guy's a pastor anymore. He's the real estate guy. And so you can change that. And so, you can start there. But I would say the big thing is aligning yourself with the opportunity. So, finding the deals great. If you're going to go be a deal guy and you're in a market that is a, good transactions, you can go find deals. Well, you're still missing the other link. So you need to be a part of a community, probably a mastermind, maybe a big coaching program that has investors. Whereas, hey, I've identified my investor group. I know these guys are looking for this type of deal, and then go find that type of deal. Don't go find a deal and then say, hey, who wants to buy this? That's started at the wrong place. Line up your investors, line up your capital before you go and try and find deals. And that's
smart. A few things on that. One, you started doing these DMs and on LinkedIn. I have people that say like, well, I want to wait until I get my first deal before I start posting on social media. And I'm like, look, there's certain people that can connect with Ellis. There's certain people that will connect with Darin, but there's other people that trust you and they feel more connected to somebody that's just newly going through it than somebody that's been in the business for a while. So, you didn't wait. And that would be my advice to other people is, look, just tell people what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't have to say that you're an expert right away, but eventually they come back to you and they realize that you have more knowledge than they do.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, people. Share the journey. Don't stop. Don't wait. Definitely matters. And here's the thing: it's what like my mother-in-law is like this. She's like, she runs this art gallery. She's doing well, but she could do a lot better if she was any good at marketing. She just doesn't want to post because she's like, well, I don't want to be on everyone's news feed. And her mindset is a mindset of so many others. Is like, well, I don't want to post bad content. Let me give everyone a tip. If you post bad content, no one's going to freaking see it anyways, because there's so much content out there that if it's not good, no one cares. Like, they won't see it because, one, the algorithm won't push it. And so just keep creating.
That's fear again, man. I was afraid, man. 4 years ago, I had no idea what the heck Instagram was, and I remember I hired a guy to teach me like how to do it. I didn't even know how to create a profile, and he told me you have to post every day, and I was like, oh shit, like. What am I going to do? And the first day I was like, had my finger over that post button and I was scared. And like you said, after you do it, like you just realize that it's not a big deal, right? Yeah. It really is not a big deal. You're trying to educate other people and bring other people into the fold. And if it's bad content, nobody's going to see it anyway. I love that. Yeah. That's great.
And honestly, to go back to coaching, I actually hired a content coach early on like that too, man. I hired a guy. I was like, hey, can you help me just help me change my identity on LinkedIn? And I was like, I just need someone to push me. And so I did. I was paying him like $100 a month or $200 a month, which back then was a lot of money. I was still college pastoring, trying to change my identity on LinkedIn. So, if you're uncomfortable with it, get uncomfortable. You make commitments. I always say this. You make a commitment with either your calendar or with your wallet. And if you're not willing to make, one of those commitments, either put it in your calendar or spend the money on it, probably nothing's going to change.
Yeah, I hear you. So, look, 3 years you guys have been going hard. Any top 1 or 2 learning lessons?
Yeah, you just don't know what you don't know.
Would you do anything different?
There's levels to this business. Would I do anything different? Not really. I would just say this, like, it's really hard to even set goals and know this business until you're in it. I just say what I'm learning right now. I'll give you some great takeaways. One, on the capital side, I've watched a lot of guys kind of grow through syndication, raising through individual LPs, and that's always been like the model. I don't know if that's the best route. I don't know if we'll stick to that. We've been doing that, but dude, there's a lot of private equity and there's a lot of money out there and there's a lot of guys. Most of the big buyers in Dallas are not syndicators. There's a ton of syndicators in Dallas, but there's 2 groups. I'm not going to say their names because I want to be bigger than them one day. But they're doing a different approach. They got private institutional equity, and most of what I've learned through this business is don't do that because they want more control or they'll take your lunch. And maybe that's true. But if they can help me buy $15 billion of real estate, what the heck do I care? And so I don't know. I think there's things that don't, there are multiple ways to do this business. And, it's even hard to know that until you get in. But, I'm just learning like there are multiple equities and multiple equity sources. And the bigger you go, the easier it is to find those sources. Smaller you play, the less options you have. The bigger you go, the more people you can call. The only reason I'm able to make all these calls right now and I'm getting people to respond because we're going after a $50 million deal in the hottest market in the country. A lot of people who are like, oh, that sounds interesting. If this was a duplex, no one would care.
Right.
So go big and get big as fast as you can because it's a lot easier. From a deal standpoint.
So I'm in agreement with you, but that goes with the mindset thing too. A lot of people think that they have to do the duplex or the fourplex first before they go bigger because their mind will only let them go that big. So, I would say two things. If you can't get over it, then just do the duplex and then move on. But if you can go straight to doing 100+ unit deals. And most people will tell you that it's easier.
Yeah, for sure. Again, just pick like the duplex. You do everything. If you want to go do a 100-unit deal, you probably can't do that on your own. So you're gonna need partners, and you're gonna need to figure out where you line in the business. So then the other thing we've learned, man, I think I've learned just even recently is on the deal finding side of things. We kind of formed a joint partnership with someone who's local to the market, broker experience, and they've taught me a ton about what it takes to find deals, and how much you have to see about like being on the ground, looking at deals, how to underwrite quickly, how to make offers. And I think, for a while, the reason like I said, this business isn't very predictable is because we just clearly weren't doing enough. We weren't seeing enough deals. We didn't know what a good deal looked like. And so I think that's a big one is it just takes, and especially in a competitive environment, you have to look at a lot of stuff. But there's a lot of stuff out there. And if you're consistent and you're making enough offers, you're going to build enough momentum. The key to this, and this is where I messed up early on, is we were making offers in Tucson. And I like Tucson. They got great margaritas in Tucson. But there's just not enough transactions happening in Tucson. So, there's about 5 buyers. That's all in Tucson. And the 5th buyer, they bought 2 deals last year. And so it just goes to show you if the 5th largest buyer in Tucson bought 2 or 3 large multifamily deals last year, it's not a big enough market. And so, that's one of the things I learned is, not just the vehicle, but make sure you're picking the right market. And so I really like a very highly transactional, competitive market. It's why Dallas is a market we really like because people are in and out of deals all the time there. And so there's always a next deal to look at. And that's really important.
Absolutely. So you're not a big time economic guy from a background, but you are in the business. So
yeah,
want to get your take on, all right, we got rising interest rates, we've got rising inflation. What's your take, on how that's going to impact multifamily and commercial real estate going forward?
I mean, it's going to impact it. What's interesting though, again, you're right. I'm not an economist, but I talk to a lot of people, and I got to convince a lot of people to give me money, even within all this happening. So I'm trying to figure out where. And here's the thing: we have to protect our capital, and that's the most important thing. And we're not doing stupid stuff. So a great example: we just closed on our Kansas City deal. We got a 5-year note, fixed interest, 4.25%. So we got fixed debt, rising interest rates, inflation's at 10%. We're gonna make a lot of money on that deal, right? I feel good about being fixed into that deal. However, I'm not a big fan of fixed interest rate. Like, I like floating debt, and I'm okay with it. You know, if you look at historical data, historical trends, about 3.1 years after the Fed rises interest rates is about how long it takes for interest rates to drop back below to where they were. I mean, it's not, you look at from a history standpoint, interest rates are going down. And are there some things that are happening in the middle of that? Absolutely, like anything. Right now, we're in a rising interest rate environment. But come back to this episode 3 years from now, and I can, according to the historical data, interest rates are going to be lower. It just is true. And so if you have a business model, and that's what we're value-add multifamily guys do, so interest rates are high right now. Okay, cool, fine. But we're going to go in there. We're going to make sure we run a stress test on our cap rates, make sure we're covering our cash flow. But at the same time, we don't really care, right? Because we're flipping units. We're increasing revenue through our value-add strategy. And then in about 2 or 3 years, when we're ready to exit this deal, okay, interest rates have probably settled down, and there's another buyer ready to come take down this deal. So as long as we've stress tested our plan right now to, hey, if interest rates go up 200 basis points, well, our lender is going to make us buy a cap insurance anyways. So, you know, we're going to have to go spend a lot of money, $500,000 to make sure, we cap our rate. And then we're just going to go execute our business model, right? And then in 3 years, when we're ready to exit this deal and things have settled down, then there'll be another buyer ready to go. So that's how I see it. I do think it's something to pay attention to. It's really key in underwriting. You know, you want to make sure that you can cover your debt service, but really that's the most important thing from an asset, level. Dude, there's so much money that want to be in this and that want to be in Texas multifamily right now. I mean, there's institutions, equity groups from all over the world that are trying to, take 10-year bets on this market. And so, from an asset standpoint, I feel great about owning this stuff. I feel great about buying this. Do we need to be wary and cautious? And at least in our underwriting, make sure we can cover our debt, right? And over the kind of a short-term level as we're renovating and doing units, absolutely. But from a 3, 5, 10-year level, we're backing up the dump truck and trying to buy as much stuff as we can, just because from a long enough standpoint, just look at the data, man. There's not enough housing. It gets harder and harder every year to buy a house. More people are renting. More people are moving to Texas. So that's where we're at right now. That's our thesis, and I think
those are all huge
to kind of prove me wrong in that, because I'm only just saying what's happening. And if you're worried about interest rates, I think it's hard to be worried about them for longer than about 4 years, because historically, consistently, they go down.
It's all great points. Look, if with inflation at 7 or 8%, if you put $100,000 in the bank and you just hold it and do nothing with it, then after a year you've got $92,000 or $93,000 worth of buying power, right? I mean, that's in 1 year. So it doesn't seem like it makes sense. You hear the term cash is trash, to just keep your funds in cash. Putting it into multifamily. Now, I think that without having a crystal ball, I'm still bullish in the sense that look, if we do have inflation, and especially if we end up having inflation on the salary side, on the wage side, people have more money, and they will, so rents can continue to go up. So you have your revenue going up, but then if you fix debt, you have your debt service locked in. Even if you have floating rate debt, it's significantly less than your top line rent. So you're going to increase your profitability. The question mark is will cap rates go up to the point where it eats into all that additional profitability. And I don't think anybody knows that, but I think it's still an attractive place to be. And I live in Dallas, and I see, people are moving here every day, and the roads are getting busier. And the town that I live in, Prosper, Texas, it was like 7,000. Now it's like 35,000.
I just don't see a future where cap rates in Dallas are 5 ever again. Be really, really hard to convince me of that, man. There's just too much happening there.
Well, it's all relative value, right? So if it comes down to the 10-year, the treasuries. Look, if treasuries go up to 4.5%, then cap rates are going to go higher than 5%. I mean, because nobody's going to buy commercial real estate, take on additional risk when they could buy, treasuries and get that. So it's all going to be relative value. But, I have very smart people that think that there's no way that the Fed is going to be able to raise rates as much as they are without, damaging the economy. So, and it, like you said, they could end up doing a few interest rate increases, and then all of a sudden they go back, the other way. So, nobody knows what they've done,
right? I mean, and you got a great point, man. Who knows what the Fed's going to do? I mean, I think you're right, though. I mean, at what cost do they do that? And it's like, I think they've already proven COVID that they don't want to see another 08 or 09. So at what cost do they do this? And it seems like not at the cost of destroying or wrecking the economy. But I don't know. I mean, you've seen crazier stuff. It's true. It's the risk we take.
But you got to put it someplace. You got to put it someplace, and I think that it's a great place to park capital and a great place to build wealth. In addition, to your point about markets, I saw it last, with COVID. Like people, we couldn't, if we had tenants that couldn't pay, we weren't allowed to evict them for a period of time. But if they left in the middle of the night, well, there was a line of people waiting to move in, right? There's just a ton of people where if you're in certain markets and somebody moves out, it may be much more difficult to find a tenant. So, hey, what's the next big stretch goal for you, man? So let's assume that you get this $50 million deal, all right?
No, we're going to get it.
Right. So let's assume you get it. What's the next big stretch goal for you?
Yeah, no, and we've already, in my mind,
you got it. All right. You can text me later after you get the phone call.
Like, Darin, I got the deal, and I'm going to know in about 8 hours if I got this deal. This would open up a lot for us, no doubt. What we're trying to do over the next 12 to 18 months is purchase 1,000 units in Dallas MSA. And that's not like just a number on a board for us. That is I think that's enough from what I've studied. This is very calculated. From what I've studied from others, that's enough units that allows us to begin to kind of vertically integrate a few departments like construction and rehab, potentially property management. Because those are things, according for our business model, we need control over, right? We need to be able to control supply of materials. We need to be able to control supply and time of labor. And so, we need to get to 1,000 units as fast as possible so that we're not relying on third party, and we can begin to kind of take over some of this on our own. So 12 to 18 months, 1,000 units.
What's so great is you think back, man, like you had $10,000 to start. Then you went and you figured out how to buy a duplex. Now your goal is, I'm going to buy 1,000 units in the next year, in DFW. It's crazy what can change once you start hitting some of your goals and you start being around other people and changing that mindset of yours. So that's awesome, man. I look forward to watching that. Hey, what do you like to do?
Come be a part of it, man. Come be a part of it. I need partners. I need guys in Dallas who understand the market, who can raise money, who can find, come be a part of it. I'm not trying to do this on my own, man. I'm talking to you right now. I'm dead serious. All
right, let's do it.
Let's go. We're going to do it. There's no doubt. we're going to do it. It might take us 12, it might take us 18, but we're going to do it. There's no doubt. And we have the people behind us that want to be there. I know people want to be in Dallas. There's money all over, man. And right now what they don't have is guys like us who will do whatever it takes to find the opportunity.
Right.
So,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're the X factor
to get the deal, right?
We're the X factor. So
awesome. Well, I'm up for that. So keep me in mind for sure.
Yeah.
What do you like to do outside of work for fun?
Yeah, man, we live in San Diego. I love this area. We just had we have a 1-year-old little daughter. She's about to turn 1.
I think I heard her earlier.
You did, definitely. My nanny just got back with her. She was crying, so she's not feeling very well today. So I love hanging out with her. My wife and I, it's just been a really fun, sweet season, man, to just be parents. So we've really enjoyed that. And I have a golf club in my hand right now, so
nice.
I like to golf. I don't get to golf enough because of
we're recording this just after Masters weekend, so
yeah. And I think that's probably why I'm holding my club, because I'm like, how much can I get out? I'm literally thinking as I'm doing this interview, okay, what time am I going to finish? What do I have next? Can I get out and play 9? So I've kind of got the golf bug right now. Is another thing I like to do. So that's a big one.
Well, good for you, man. If you come into Dallas, let's definitely play some golf.
Do it, man, for sure.
I love getting out there.
I'll be there. We'll play.
How can somebody reach out to you if they want to get to know you better? Look, I haven't even mentioned it, but I mean, you're in multifamily, you've got a podcast, you've got a YouTube channel, you wrote a book, you've got a mastermind, you've done all that in freaking 3 years. So how does somebody get to know you better? What's the best place to point them to?
Well, yeah, I mean, just be careful, right? Like, because you can already tell from this, get involved in my inner circle, man, things get disrupted fast. So, yes, we do have a mastermind. It's particularly for faith-minded folks who want to go to the next level as a real estate operator, investor. You don't have to have experience. But if you do have experience, great. I mean, we're probably have over $1 billion of commercial real estate just within our community, and it's where a lot of things happen. So that's at thekingdomrei.com. And then my company, Symphony Capital Group, symphonycapitalgroup.com, symphonycapitalgroup.com. We have a contact form there. And if you've heard this episode and you're at all interested in being, just like I told Darin, the invite's open to come build something with us. And whatever that looks like on the deals, on the capital.
Or as a passive investor, right? I mean, some people
passive investors. Again, you better get on some deals quick, though, as a passive investor, because I don't know how long that's going to be around. But we want to build, we want to grow. And so I know personally, we can't do that on our own. And so if that's of interest, then symphonycapitalgroup.com. I mean, it's good. That's what I say. Like, get plugged in, And so if you want to do that with us, great. You can do that with Darin, great. The other thing I did, I don't know how much more time we got, but literally that's why I do podcast shows now, because when I didn't know anyone and all I knew where the term was podcast, everyone that I listened to on the podcast show, I would try and contact them. And I didn't know what I was going to say to them. I didn't have anything to give them or offer them. I was just like, I want to know this guy. I want him to know me. And you know what I mean? So I would literally reach out to every single podcast person or podcast guest that I would listen to. And that's how, a lot of the relationships I have today is because of some of those early conversations. So if you can get on my schedule, I hope you do. I would love to speak with you. It is kind of hard right now. That's why I don't really, provide just initial, here's the contact information. But those are kind of how to get part of our inner circle, thekingdomrei.com or symphonycapitalgroup.com.
That's huge. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Listeners, you heard it here, man. He started with next to nothing, right? And he's blowing up. So you can too, but you got to take action. You cannot just listen to podcasts and read books, man. You got to get out there, meet people, and actually take a chance. All right, with that, listeners, I hope you enjoyed that one. Until next week, signing off.
Thank you for watching Darin Batchelder's Real Estate Investing Show. If you liked the episode, please click the like button and subscribe to the show. If you already are subscribed, then thank you, and please share the show with a friend. Check out other free resources at darinbatchelder.com/learn.